oh my goodness me, somebody's having a joke here. I genuinely, within those split seconds, I was like, I just can't believe this.
Today, I have the great pleasure and honour in talking with the CEO of Dignity, Kate Davidson MBE. We'll cover a wide range of topics, how funerals are changing throughout the United Kingdom, and how Dignity and the size of their company keep ahead of these changes. We'll also cover Kate's mission and Dignity's mission as they move forward into the future. I have the great pleasure in talking today with Kate Davidson MBE of Dignity. I've been really looking forward to this. Known you for a very long time, so really excited to chat to you. My first question to you then, Kate, is you've gone through all the ranks and now you find yourself as CEO of Dignity. Could you talk us through your journey that you've been on to get to the position you are today?
Yeah, of course. And I should just say thanks for having us. It's a real honour to be able to talk to you, and lovely to actually share it with someone that I've worked with for so long as well. So I've been, I think, incredibly fortunate actually. I started off my journey in the bereavement sector at my local crematorium. I'd actually done a law degree and I think, like lots of other people at the time, was trying to find a job in law as a solicitor or as a barrister, and just couldn't find anything at all. I was lucky enough to get a position doing some admin at my local council, and an opportunity came up in the local crematorium, which is Stourbridge, which is near to obviously where we're from. I thought, that sounds just a little bit different, and I really kind of fancied it. And I always can totally remember back to that first day when I first overheard people talking to bereaved families and caring for funeral directors and so on, and I just thought, gosh, this is a really special place and I really, really like it. From that moment on, I was there for a couple of years. I then moved to Dignity as crematorium manager, and that's when we started to work together properly, I suppose, at Telford, which is our kind of local crematorium. I think I was probably about 25 at the time when I was made crematorium manager there. Spent a couple of years doing that role, really enjoyed it, really kind of probably built, I would say, leadership skills as well as just the sort of sector specific skills, and then was able to move around a little bit in Dignity again. So I did some regional management roles, looked after our memorial business. So I
suppose it allowed you to see the whole business as well, didn't it really? And you learn about people all the time as well, so leadership again. Opportunity.
Exactly. And I think the fact that Dignity is obviously across the whole of the country and it's a large organisation really exposed me to lots and lots of different situations, different experiences, and that's been sort of totally invaluable. I was lucky enough to be supported by Dignity to do a management qualification, and I did that part-time while I was still working, obviously, and really loved that. And that was kind of a bit of an eye-opener for me in terms of leadership and sort of thinking about the type of leader I wanted to be and type of work I wanted to do. And it was at that point that Westerly approached me. So I decided, made a big decision actually to leave Dignity at the time, and went over to Westerly, which is another wonderful organisation. And I was there for only really 18 months, of which most of that was COVID actually. So it was an incredibly challenging time for all of us, of course. But I think it's fair to say my heart was always with Dignity, and I was really sad to leave. So when the opportunity to come back kind of arose, I really wanted to. So came back as Chief Operating Officer about 2 years ago now. And then after a year of doing that, kind of getting under the skin of the new strategy at Dignity and some of the changes that were happening, I was promoted to the CEO role, and that's where I am today. And I've been in the seat for about 12 months.
That's fantastic. And from an outside point of view, things that I've seen is you're very sort of keen on the culture within the company. And I think, again, it's a new way of thinking and hasn't always been associated with the funeral industry, that sort of leadership. I mean, what's your vision there? Where do you want to take it, and what are your values, if that makes sense?
Yeah, absolutely. So I think kind of in terms of my leadership style and what's important to me as the leader of Dignity is really, I think the fact that I've worked in lots of different roles and worked my way through various parts of the organisation at different levels, I really understand how it feels to be on the front line of a funeral service. And I know, firstly, how amazingly rewarding that role is, but I also know the challenges that people face. And I think for me, as leader, I really want to kind of listen, understand, and give our colleagues within Dignity, but actually across the whole sector, the tools and the resources to be the best that they can be, because in doing so, we then provide the best possible service for families and bereaved people. And that's ultimately why I'm here. And I know that's why you're here as well, because it's all we've ever known.
Yeah.
And so I think for me, I always describe myself as being a bereavement person first and foremost. And I'm here to look after bereaved families and our colleagues as well.
And you know what, it's really interesting because it's like compassion is like deep within, and it's hard. You can learn about it, but experiences build compassion. And I saw that in the military when leaders who we responded really well to, or when I was in that position where I was a leader in the military, when you've been there, you can connect, you know what people are going through, and it's that compassion again, isn't it? It comes back to that once again. Also, which I'm really interested in, and it's incredible as well, so you recognised recently in the honours list for an MBE, which is an unbelievable achievement. Would you be comfortable in telling us about the journey of that recognition?
Yeah, I think the first thing to say is it's the most incredibly humbling and honouring thing that's ever happened to me, and that may ever happen to me actually. And I hope I've always described it as something that, I guess I was fortunate enough to be recognised, but actually it's not mine, it's ours. I think of it as belonging to the whole sector actually, because the work that I did during COVID, it was no different to anybody else. We all had our own challenges, and we all faced into COVID in the best possible way to make sure that we didn't let people down. And I think that for me is just like the resounding point, is that actually I'm incredibly lucky and humbled by it. Yeah, it came about as the result of the work that I did with Westerly during COVID. Again, very, very difficult time, but I suppose it was that visible leadership during a time of incredible change, and you would have gone through it as well, and our colleagues would know that every day we got different instructions from the government about guidelines, and we were trying to, on one hand, make sure that we didn't let a family down, and that we were able to give people the funerals that they wanted to arrange for their loved ones, but then also looking after our colleagues, because actually we knew that if we didn't do that, then we probably wouldn't be able to deliver that service. And so it was this constant balance of really trying to do the best possible service that we could in the circumstances. And I guess from a leadership perspective, for me, it was one of the most transformational experiences, and such a learning experience to be able to see, to kind of lead an organisation, and then to find out 6 months ago that I'd been nominated and honoured in this way is it's incredibly special.
Fantastic. And how were you told the news as well?
Well, it was lovely actually. So I got an email.
Okay.
Got an email from the Cabinet Office.
As you do.
As you do. Well, actually, during COVID, we used to get emails from the Cabinet Office because it would have been like they'd been saying, here's the next meeting, here's the updates and whatnot. And so I sort of thought, that's okay. That's something to do with that. They've got my email address from somewhere, and I kind of half read it and didn't really read it properly, and then I noticed that there was an attachment on it, and it said MBE Davidson, and I was like, oh my goodness me, somebody's having a joke here. I genuinely, within those split seconds, I was like, I just can't believe this. And then I opened the attachment, and it was just this amazing feeling of just shock and is this real? And I still feel a little bit like that, really.
Which we're so proud, and
thank you.
It's incredible what you've achieved, so well done, from the sector, that is, as well. And like you say, throughout COVID, it was a challenging time, wasn't it? And back to leadership again, which just keeps coming back to, I think during the dark times and hard times, when you see the true colours of people.
Totally.
In all walks of life.
Totally.
So just a huge well done to you, Kate. Being CEO of Dignity, which is the second largest provider in the UK, and also being female. So this is really interesting. So there's perception And actually, it's true that the industry has been a male-dominated industry for generations historically. How do you find being a female CEO for the second biggest provider in the UK? And what would you say to those people who still think it is a male-dominated industry? And how do we change that as well? So females know it is an industry that's for everybody. What's your views on that, and what would you say?
So I think when I joined the sector, and I kind of back along 20 years ago, I think it was definitely male dominated at that point in time, and I certainly can remember back to those early days where actually you would very rarely see women coming into the offices, or women working in the offices in the crems or the funeral directors. But I would say I think it has changed since then. I actually think it's continuing to change, and I would like to hope that actually having women in leadership roles in the bereavement sector, whether that's me or whether it's many of the other amazing women in this sector, actually provide that sort of source of inspiration, actually, that it is possible. And it's absolutely. And that actually, do you know, this sector is such a special place, and the work that we do is all about compassion, as you say. It's all about caring for people, and it's all about kind of really putting other people first, and I think women are exceptional at that. But I also know that there are many wonderful men in this sector as well. So for me, I suppose I'm just blessed that I've been given this opportunity, and I want to use it as much as I possibly can to be a platform for anybody who wants to get on, whether male or female.
No, that's the thing, isn't it? It's irrelevant if you're male or female. As long as you're here for the right reasons, and obviously absolutely. What you do is so apparent. And I think what you said as well, the sector, we've got some special people, and we should be so proud of the work that we do. And I keep coming back to service before self every time. And I think a lot of people, you know, they who are in this industry, they follow that and they believe that, and that's why they're doing it. So I think if it was a job, I don't think you last very long. So because it is so challenging. Regarding this changes as well, which you mentioned about historically being male dominated, and as we move forward with further changes coming in, how do you see funerals changing? We have the rise of direct cremation now as well. That's an unattended direct cremation. You know, do you think the sector and the industry and funerals are changing for the good or the bad, and how do we adapt to that? And being CEO, how do you manage those plans and expectations as well?
It's so important for us and for Dignity, but I think any business owner to kind of always have an eye on the future and what's coming, and to start thinking about how we plan and how we adapt to those changes. I suppose to answer your question about whether I think it's changing for the better, I think we're following what people want, so therefore it's got to be for the better. And I think what's really what I've seen or observed probably since COVID, maybe a little bit before that, is just this development of people thinking more openly and positively about a funeral. So it used to be quite a very, you know, obviously a very sad event, very traditional, and quite structured, and not particularly personal, I think. And what's amazing now is to see that people are really starting to think of a funeral as a true opportunity to celebrate somebody, or if not to celebrate, to really mark what that person was all about, and connect with them and their memory through whatever that is, if it's music, if it's a venue, or, you know, doing something different with a memorial. And I think that's just really special. And actually I think the opportunity to do that, so certainly for Dignity, when we think about actually how do we kind of get this organisation ready to really personalise things for people and really inspire people to think about how their funeral might be, or how their loved one's funeral might be, I think is actually really exciting. And for me, it kind of adds an additional layer to what's already a really interesting, fascinating sector. But when you add into that, you know, actually really personalising services, I think that's a really exciting thing. And so hopefully it's something that we can all kind of pivot towards to I suppose to improve what services we're able to offer to families.
Definitely. No, that's really, really interesting. Like you say, I find it's inspiring, and obviously you've been really helpful and supportive of my initiative to get bereavement awareness into schools, and it ties into that, doesn't it, really? Once we understand the feelings associated with loss, then actually we can prepare for how we connect with it when someone dies, and that funeral service is a platform in order to move forward with grief. So with direct cremations then, and unattended direct cremation, I mentioned that. I mean, I have concerns about where people are going to be in 5 years' time with their grief. Do you have concerns about that, or again, is it the fact of what people want, so we adapt to it? What's your view beyond that?
I think it's really interesting, and actually I'm pretty sure it's not tested yet. I'm not sure whether we have the answers to that yet. So I think it's something that you're absolutely right to kind of pose the question, and we should be talking about it and exploring it. We are still seeing people have some form of service, we will obviously look after a lot of unattended direct cremations, but we also look after people who say, well, I'm gonna have a direct cremation, but I'm also going to do this as well, or I'm going to do something else to mark the passing of a loved one. And so I think that again goes back to probably ourselves as people within the funeral sector, to think about how we can support people. So I kind of, in a way, I sort of think, like, okay, what can we do as a funeral business to, absolutely deliver that unattended funeral if that's what the family want, but also thinking creatively about what other things we can do, and how we can keep that connection with a family so that they always know we're here. And if they did choose a direct cremation and actually it wasn't the right thing for them, well, then what can we do, and how can we continue to support them? And so that's kind of where my mind goes, although I as I said, do agree with you, it's the right question for us to be asking, because it is such a step change, I think, from what we've seen in the past. I
think, again, as we spoke about before, it's about the education, isn't it? As long as people are aware of what they're having, then that's fine. It's their decision, and it's really clear for them to choose. This sort of ties in back to leadership again, really. As CEO of Dignity and the scale of the business itself, how do you ensure that your values of what your vision is and mission is implemented across the whole business? Because obviously the scale, it must be difficult. How do you manage that? How do you tackle that?
It's really hard. It's really hard. The scale of looking after such a large organisation in such a geographically spread, vast space is I'm not going to lie, that is a real challenge. One of the hardest things about this role, actually. But what I would say is I don't think that my vision or my values for the organisation are too far removed from our colleagues. It goes back to what you were saying earlier. We have special people in this sector who put the client and the customer first, the bereaved person first. That's where I'm at. And so really, whenever I talk about why I'm here, my vision and those really core values, it's because it's essentially putting the bereaved person at the centre of everything that we do. And I think if we all do that, then ultimately we'll get to the right place. We did a process, we did a piece of work about 18 months ago to build our own guiding principles for dignity. So this was a piece of work where we kind of worked with frontline colleagues, some of our head office colleagues, some of our leadership team, to kind of say, what should those really key values be for Dignity, and what should those, what are the really important things to us about this organisation?
Who are we?
Exactly, who are we? What do we stand for? What do we want to be remembered for? What's our legacy? And so building those principles out with the support of our teams and our colleagues has kind of helped to crystallise that as well, so that actually we all agree that there's key things that we're here to do, and if we're all going in that same direction,
get behind it as well.
Exactly. I guess the other thing about the size of the organisation is just communication. I can't understate the importance of communicating, and that's both ways. So obviously I like to tell people how we're getting on and give them updates and share how we're getting on in terms of all sorts of things. But it's just as important for me to hear back from people. And so whenever we're presenting or giving updates, we always say, look, please, we want your feedback. And actually, I'd much rather hear the stuff that's not so great.
Yeah.
I'd much rather know what's annoying you, what's not landing properly, what aren't we doing well, because that's where the opportunity is for us to improve. So I would say that kind of communication piece is something that, you know, I've had to learn quite quickly, I guess, in this role.
But again, that's leadership again, is being able to receive information which you don't always want to hear.
Yeah.
It's really important, because that's how you get better, isn't it? From clients and also your team as well. Regarding sort of regulation, so we've gone through recent regulation of the CMA, the Competition Market Authority, and also the Financial Conduct Authority.
Yeah.
How's that been for you as well, for going through that transition, and again with the scale of the company?
It has been a really difficult time, I think it's fair to say. So as you probably know, Dignity have always called for regulation, and so we're very supportive and pleased that that we are now in a regulated space, and that's going to, you know, kind of get even further enhanced in the coming years. But having said that, actually going through the process and getting ourselves set up to be regulated and to work in that kind of environment has been a real challenge, and it's been a huge piece of work by a lot of our colleagues who have done fantastically well to get us to this position. But I suppose it's interesting actually, because we are such a large organisation, or a large player in the sector. We have a strong position, and we're able to change things and do things because we've got the scale behind us. But I think on the converse, it can also be challenging. So for me, you know, when we talk about the CMA, it's really difficult. We have 725 branches. It's very hard to be able to know exactly what's happening in all of those branches, and also we want to empower our colleagues locally to run their businesses as they would if they were a true business owner. And actually it's challenging to kind of think about how we achieve that, but also make sure that we remain kind of within the compliance of all of those regulations. And again, comes back to really good communication, and giving people the tools and the resources that they need to be able to do that job within the confines, I guess, of the new regulations.
Thank you for such honest answers. It's incredible, and commendable again, your leadership qualities, recognising how you communicate. As we come to the end of this interview, then my sort of final question to you then is, what is the future of sort of Kate Davidson MBE and also Dignity? Like, where do you want to take it?
Gosh, what a question. So I'm a long-term Dignity for life person. I've always, I can't imagine another organisation or role where I will feel quite so happy, rewarded, motivated and inspired to do a job.
And it's part of you almost.
Exactly, absolutely. So I have really long-term aspirations for the organisation, and that's how we communicate internally, is that we are not a short-term business. Funerals aren't short-term. You have to spend a long time building reputation, building your brand, and building that excellence and those standards. And I think that for me is so important, is actually what do people think of when they think of Dignity? Is it positive? And if it's not, or if it wasn't in the past, how can I change that, and how can I and we and our organisation be better and lead, be at the forefront of the market as one of the biggest players? So I think we're kind of going through a really interesting time, as much of the sector is, the market is changing, the sector is changing, and Dignity is going through its own changes and challenges as a result of that. And I think that we're in a tough place right now. And so my initial sort of feelings now are, I want to support our colleagues, I want to create some stability for our colleagues, and a really, really strong platform from which we can, really succeed. And so for me, it's about kind of getting that investment in place, looking after our people, and then starting to think really innovatively about how we can build and grow our presence and our reputation in the sector.
Amazing, Kate. Well, just a huge thank you for your time today. I think what you're doing is incredible. What you've done is amazing. It's been amazing to see your progress. from a personal point.
You too.
Yeah, it's all going well. And I think your leadership qualities as well is commendable as well as a company CEO. So thank you for your time, and we'll see you soon.
My pleasure. Thank you.